This is a kind of, I guess, a dark humor and a little bit of a jab at consumerism. The title of the book is Dead End, and I'll start reading chapter 1, The New Initiative. My best friend Jimmy Tilley sells custom clothing and accessories to terrorists, and he hopes to establish a chain of stores wherever terrorism is sold. Jimmy started with a single line of suicide vests, but had disappointing results. I made the mistake of pointing out the poor prospect for repeat business, and Jimmy was so impressed by my insight that he asked me to put together a marketing plan for the new company. That's why I rode my bike to his house carrying an easel, flip chart, and colored markers under my arm. Jimmy's an overachieving underachiever, but by God, it's fun watching him try. We've been friends since middle school, 8 years now, and I hope to trust his judgment. But Jimmy's latest idea worries me. He gave up a perfectly good job directing cars at the farewell funeral parlor. They gave him a free suit to wear at work, unless the corpse needed to suit Jimmy's size, free flowers if a family left them in the chapel, and a ride home if the hearse passed his house after a burial. His mother and grandmother had sewed the garments in a detached garage on the outskirts of Savannah. Tilley House is a good ways out of town, and balancing the marketing material on my Schwinn Stingray was a challenge, but the banana seat provided plenty of room to adjust my riding position without worrying about falling off the back of the bike. "Hey Steve," Jimmy called out from his driveway. I negotiated my wheels around clumps of weeds sprouting from the weathered asphalt. The garage door was open, and I could see Mrs. Tilley and Miss Gladys, Jimmy's grandmother, hunched over sewing machines. I parked my bike and walked into the garage. The coolness of the shade made me realize how hot the Georgia sun was that day. Jimmy's production team didn't look up. They didn't hear my hello over the doors like my fire. Miss Gladys is a big Jim Morrison fan. 3 oscillating fans distorted the music. It sounded like Jim was singing "Fight My Liar." Dude, thanks for coming over to help, Jimmy said as he set up the easel and flip chart. His smile was infectious, one of the reasons I liked hanging out with him. He turned off the stereo. That got the ladies' attention. "What the hell?" Miss Gladys greeted me. Her silver hair was pulled back and wound in a bun. A quarter of the hair had escaped. She removed her reading glasses and let them hang from a faux pearl necklace. She wiped her forehead with a hotel washcloth and placed the cloth in a large pocket on the side of her orange plaid silver shift. "Grandma Gladys, you remember Steve Ramon, don't you?" Jimmy asked. His questioning eyes weren't so sure that she did. Yes, I remember Steve. You're Edgar Jones' boy," she recalled. Jimmy's mom, Angie Tilley, patted Mrs. Gladys's arm and smiled and said, "No, Mama, that's Steve Jones. This is Steve Ramon, different families." Miss Gladys looked at her, then at me, and said, "I'm sorry, Ramon. Let me put my hearing aid in." She dug under the washcloth, pulled out the device, and put it in her ear. She smiled as the sounds of the world returned to her eardrum. "That's okay, Miss Gladys," I said. I put my helmet on the picnic table workbench and joined the others in fanning myself with an outdated calendar. The initial cool of the garage faded, and the fans and calendars pushed the humid air with enough force that I thought of that movie, The Perfect Storm. Jimmy clapped his hands and said, "Okay, everybody, let's get down to business." He made a comment about how it was truly auspicious to start a new company in his parents' garage with a Steve there to help. You might think he referred to Steve Jobs, but he meant Steve Klein. The Klein Steve had recently opened an ice cream truck repair shop in his parents' garage. I wondered if the Klein Steve would be as successful as the Jobs Steve, but I doubted it. I walked to the flip chart, grabbed a pack of scented markers for my bag, pulled out grape, and awaited the opportunity to headline the central points of discussion. Jimmy waited for me to take my position and began his remarks. "As your president and CEO, I'm pleased to announce that we have a company name." Jimmy stopped, waiting for enthusiastic applause. Hearing none, he maintained a smile and said, "Steve, if I could use the marker." He handed me the marker and I stepped aside. Jimmy faced the flip chart, wrote out the name, and stood back. "Drop Dead Fashions." Jimmy bounced on his toes, bursting with energy at what looked like anticipation of confirmation of the perfect company name. "Well, what do you think?" he asked. "Oh, honey, that's just wonderful. I really like it," his mom said, adding a manufactured but sincere motherly smile. Mrs. Tilley spoke from years of practical responses to Jimmy's impractical fancy. "I couldn't have picked a better name," I said. I still wasn't sure exactly what the company was going to do, but I thought I'd better get on board with the new corporate branding initiative. Grandma, what do you think? Jimmy asked. Miss Gladys put on her glasses back on, even though they were just for close work. Rubbed her one hair on her chin and said, "Sounds stupid to me. I thought you used a name like people think of when they think of nice clothes, like Kmart, Target, and such." Miss Gladys watched her grandson's reaction to her criticism. She said, "But then again, what the hell do I know about such things? I'm just a factory worker." Jimmy appeared.